on in. I hope you're having a beautiful into the week. We're looking at the weekend in just less than 24 hours. I don't know about you, but I'm very excited that that time frame is coming to get an opportunity to relax and get caught up on doing some other fun stuff like catching some different Netflix shows and some shows on Prime. And welcome to Aries Rose TV. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Aries Rose, and here on this channel we talk about world news, local news, streaming shows, movies, celebrities, pop culture, politics, basically anything I find interesting. I come on and discuss it with my Aries crew, and you know the drill. If you are a returning Aries crew member, leave hashtag Aries crew in the comments. Or if you are a first time watcher, leave first time watcher in the comments. I want to give you a shout out for stopping by. And we have a great lineup for you tonight. So we are going to talk about arson that recently happened at Governor Shapiro's house. Governor Shapiro's governor in Pennsylvania, I believe. We're also going to talk about Haley Joel Osment. The actor was arrested earlier this month. We also have an update on Diddy trial. There was a motion that was denied, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. We also are going to talk about Marjorie Taylor Greene had a town hall and some things that took place at this town hall. And we also have an update on the Karmelo Anthony case that we want to share here. And we're going to get into our first story, which is going to be about Governor Shapiro. And Governor Shapiro recently had arson take place at his home while he and his family was there with another family. They happen to have been celebrating Passover this past weekend, and that's when there was fire. That was their home was set on fire here. Fortunately, everyone was able to get out alive, and the person responsible for the arson has been arrested. I don't believe the home completely burned down, but it did have some fire damage. And to me, that's pretty scary that somebody was able to do that to their home and that somebody wanted to do that to their home. I don't know how security works for governors' homes. If they have it, I'm sure after this situation, they will have security moving forward to try to have as much protection as possible. But to have your family home when that type of situation happens has to be extremely scary. I'm glad everybody was able to get out alive. It appears as the person who did the arson to Governor Shapiro's home has turned themselves in, so they're currently locked up, and that person was identified as Cody Balmer. And so it looks like the police, they are still going to do an investigation, but they didn't have to investigate to find who the person was. They ended up bringing themselves forward. And we're going to pause here for some comments. Kay Sipsy, thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate you. How are you doing? AE, thank you so much for stopping by. Appreciate you. And if you have not already done so, if you could take a moment to like the video, I'd greatly appreciate it. It's a free way to support the channel. It goes a long way. It helps with the algorithm. So if you could do that and share this live out with family and friends, I greatly appreciate you. And let's see, the person who perpetrated this arson on Governor Shapiro's home, allegedly their motivation was due to what's happening to the Palestinian people. And essentially, he wants the deleting of his friends to stop. So we're going to keep an eye out on this case and see where it goes. I understand there was a search warrant that recently was issued here. So as additional updates are available, we'll come on and bring that information to you. But pretty scary times that we are living in right now, where people are taking out their frustrations on whatever it may be on people who are in political positions here. So we are definitely living in a different time now with the climate in this country for sure. Now we're going to move on to some entertainment news. Haley Joel Osment had some issues at California's Mammoth Mountain Resort earlier this month. And if you're not familiar with his name, you're probably familiar with one of his most popular acting roles that put him on the map. He was the young boy Cole in The Sixth Sense, which was the first movie that came out, big motion picture movie from M. Night Shyamalan, starring Haley Joel Osment and Bruce Willis. That to me is still my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie. That movie holds up to this day. I was scared the first time I seen it, and I still feel the same way right now. Anytime I get chills, I always think of that movie, saying that it's a ghost that's by you. Definitely one of those movies for the times. I wanna say it came out in, like, 96, 97 time frame, and I know he's done some other movies since then, but that's the one that stands out to me. I think that's his better known role for acting work that he's done. He was taken into custody for public intoxication and possession of a controlled substance. It's unfortunate because he's a very talented actor, and he's seemingly struggling with addiction. This is not the first time that he's been arrested for drinking. So this may, be an indication that there's something going on, or he's having a potential relapse or issue with it still. Hopefully, it's an isolated event. However, you know, when you're still in Hollywood, or if you're trying to still be active in Hollywood, they look at those things and see if it's a risk or not to have you a part of their movie, if it's going to be costly, because I believe actors have to be insured, and your lifestyle, all that stuff is taken into consideration if they're going to book you for acting roles. So it probably doesn't help to be having these types of issues going on that are attached to your name. Allegedly, he was making anti Semitic comments to the officer that arrested him, and that was caught on body cam. So I have to do a little bit more research into that. I'm hoping that wasn't the case, but if there's a body cam video there that was recording what was being stated, you'll have to go in and listen, but that's allegedly some of the comments that he had made. You could tell he's probably not in the best place in his life, because I don't think, unless you're maybe at a party or a wedding, if you're just at a resort, I want to say it's like a ski resort, you're probably not there intoxicated because you're the happiest person in the world. And he was saying his purpose for being there was to give his sister, Emily Osment, a break from him and his dogs. So, Emily Osment is an actress as well, and she played on the show Hannah Montana that was on the Disney Channel. She was the best friend to Miley Cyrus, who was Hannah Montana in the movie. So his sister as well is an actress, and she did pretty well on that show. She was on the show, I want to say, from season one up until the end, and it was on for a good 5+ years, if I'm not mistaken. It was on for a few years, so she did have a nice career in acting as well. I'm sure she's done some stuff since, but I really just mainly know her for being in Hannah Montana. But Haley Joel Osment is her brother. So he's been staying with her. He's been staying with his sister Emily because he lost his home in the Eaton fire that took place earlier this year in January of 2025. So, he's been pretty depressed behind that. He had mentioned that on I want to say it's a podcast he went onto, and it's the Richter show. Let me check the name. Yeah, but I believe that was the podcast that he was on. And so he talked a little bit about kind of what was going on at that time, and that was done before he went to Mammoth and had been arrested, but that explains why he was with his sister, living with his sister, and probably wanted to give her a break, because he may have been there since January when the fires broke out. That was really sad. A lot of people lost their homes, whole communities were destroyed by that fire. That was just a very sad time, including businesses that were affected. My heart goes out to everybody who had maybe lost a home, lost things you can't replace, like family heirlooms that you had in your home, or, things from your childhood, things from your kids' childhood that were lost in there. My heart goes out to anybody that lost something in a fire. Very tragic situation. So I understand, but I think that's why he was intoxicated, because he was just dealing with, having to find a new home, losing your stuff, kind of needing to reset up again. That's a lot, and it's not cheap either. And I also had read that he had an insurance claim denied, so he just probably had a lot on his mind, and didn't have a different way to be able to blow off some steam and kind of escape from it, if you will. And we'll keep an eye out on this case and see what happens with that. We'll provide updates as we see additional information. Now we're going to go into some more entertainment news with Diddy. So, as you may or may not know, Diddy's got numerous cases that have been filed against him, but one of them is really been filed by the federal government. So he is currently in MDC, which I believe stands for Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn, and he is being held there without the ability to have bond. So he's tried to get bond, I think, 3 times, and it was denied each time. It's considered a risk, so he has to remain behind bars until after the trial and whatever verdict comes out with that trial. So he hasn't really been able to freely go around, walk the streets since he's been locked up. And since he's been locked up, there's also been other lawsuits filed against him as well. So he's still got a lot of mountains to climb to kind of get out of the situation that he's in. And he didn't get some good news today at all either. So Diddy's trial will go on as scheduled. This is as reported by TMZ. The judge denied the legal team's motion to delay the trial for 2 months, and he was not approved for additional time. So his legal team had filed to delay the trial. Looks like they wanted to have an additional 2 months. And the purpose of that was to go through all the discovery. The defense team is alleging that the prosecutors were not giving them the discovery information fast enough, so they didn't really have a chance to go through everything so they can kind of mount a sound defense here. And they want more time to be able to do that so they can better represent their employee, or excuse me, better represent their client. But the judge has denied that motion, so the trial is going to continue as scheduled. I know I'm going to be paying attention. I don't know if cameras will be allowed in the courtroom, but updates as they come out, I will definitely bring them on here following this case. I want to say it's the RICO case he's got going against him. Let me get a drink of water real quick. Okay, thanks. So you had to get, I want to say it's like a RICO case that he had against him, and ex trafficking, I believe, is some of the allegations that he'll need to fight up against when he goes into court. It's also alleged that Cassie is going to be one of the victims that's going to be testifying. So we'll definitely see what's going on there. She's currently pregnant. I'm not sure of her due date, but I know she is relatively far along. She's not in the beginning part of the pregnancy. She's in the later half. So I'm not sure if she'll be able to go and testify or not. It's probably depending on whether or not the baby's born, what that situation is. But from what I'm hearing, she's allegedly one of the victims that will be testifying, and potentially these freak off videos could also be played in court, or at least what they currently have. So it's my understanding the jury was also being asked about their feelings on those types of things and actual activity, and the different ways actual activity can be expressed and with whom it can be expressed with. So it's going to be interesting to see what comes out of that trial, and I'm definitely going to be paying attention to that. Let me know in the comments if you've been following these Diddy cases and updates that have been going on with them as well. So we're going to see if they're able to put on a successful defense for him and what comes from that. And that looks like it's just going to be in a few weeks here. So stay tuned for some more information on that. Next, we are going to get into Marjorie Taylor Greene. And there is never a dull moment when she is involved. I will give her this incredibly entertaining woman, an incredibly entertaining woman. Generally, whenever I see something that's associated with her, I know it's about to be wild. It's going to be some stuff said that is just going to be from left field, and she usually never disappoints. However, we don't share the same viewpoints on many things, but everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Definitely during the second Trump administration, she's been a mouthpiece that I feel has been very supportive of everything President Trump is doing policy-wise and all the actions that are being taken, such as the actions that are being taken by Doge. But that may not 100% be in agreement with the constituents that she was voted in to represent. So a lot of Republican congressmen have been experiencing, Republican Congress people have been experiencing negativity at their town halls that they're holding to, I'm assuming, get in touch with the voters and hear from them. They haven't been getting such a warm welcome, a warm reception from them because people are upset about things that are going on, the cuts to jobs, the changes in the federal government. And also, Kilmore Abrigo Garcia has also been on people's radar and a huge concern for people about how that situation was handled. And we're going to go a little bit into that. But Marjorie Taylor Greene had a town hall recently where a citizen that was speaking out on things going on in this country ended up getting kind of kicked out of the meeting, if you will. They got escorted out by security or law enforcement, one of the two. And then this person ended up getting into an altercation with the officer, and it resulted in him being tased. And it looked like he was, from what I seen in the video, when the gentleman was being removed from the meeting, because essentially Marjorie Taylor Greene said that if you're here to protest, or kind of if you want to be in disagreement, that's taking place outside. So she did not want that inside the town hall. So anybody essentially that didn't seem to be speaking in favor was removed out of this town hall. And I don't know kind of how it was said before the person was moved out, but it looked like at least the one person I saw that was removed out of there was grabbing on the officer's shirt, something like that. But it looked like they were walking out. So I'm not sure what he did on the way out, because that looks like that was before they got him to the door, that he was pulling on the officer's shirt. But once they got him to the door, it looks like that's when he was tased and then fell to the ground. So, and two men ended up getting tased at the town hall. And that just, to me, is kind of surprising, because prior to the town halls that have been taking place this year in 2025, I've never heard of so many situations where constituents were expressing such anger and frustration with the way things were going. And these are, assumably, a good chunk of them are maybe Republican leaning in their political thoughts. Yeah, I don't know 100% of what everybody was politically wise, what they identify with, but that's what I would imagine based on if a Republican is your representative in that area. And they're not happy. They are just not happy about what's been going on and how it's been handled. And they're expressing that in a more vocal way than I've ever seen. So, we'll kind of see what comes from this. But it looked like the way Marjorie was running that particular town hall, you could not ask questions in real time. You had to pre-submit the questions, and then they were loaded up on the screen, and she was reading from there and responding back to it. And one of the things that a person brought up that was escorted out of the town hall, was Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who's the father from Maryland that's a legal permanent resident here in the United States, who got deported to El Salvador and is in an El Salvadorian prison currently. And the Trump administration at first was alleging that he was a member of MS-13, and that's why he was deported. And then later on, it was stated by the Trump administration that it was a clerical error and that he should not have been deported. However, that was after he was already in an El Salvadorian prison. And the president from El Salvador has said that he is not going to return Kilmar Abrigo Garcia back to the United States. And in the United States, courts have ruled that the Trump administration does need to make arrangements and try and get him back in the country. And to me, whether or not you believe this person is a gang member, and as it stands right now, there hasn't been any credible evidence that's been shown to state that Kilmore Abrigo Garcia is a gang member or is a part of MS-13, and family and himself has stated he is not. So as far as we know, he is not. As far as we know, he was deported as a clerical error. That was per the Trump administration. The concern is he was deported before due process, and that should matter to everyone, no matter what political side you fall on. it's important that everybody gets their due process. That is what makes us the country that we are, that we follow the Constitution, we follow the law, and we do things in those order. If he goes through his day in trial and he's found to be a part of this gang, or, to be a threat to the country, then at that point you can take the action that you need to take to do what's in the best interest of the public. But without having due process, you don't know whether or not that is the case. And unfortunately, he was gone before, that could be addressed, that maybe he should not have been. And we don't know if he's going to be able to come back or not. Recently, a senator from Maryland went out and met with him. So I have to look on that info and see what that discussion was like, what's going to go on from there. But that's definitely a case that people were bringing up, and a person people are bringing up because they're not happy that he's not being brought back, and the fact that he was even taken to begin with. So we'll see what comes from that. And also another senator who had some issues at their town hall, was Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley. So he also met with unhappy constituents that were expressing how they're not pleased with the way things are going in this country, how the lawmakers are not standing up to President Trump and trying to make sure that laws are followed and things are done in an orderly fashion here, as well as they brought up concerns about Kilmar Abrigo Garcia. So we'll see how these things go. We'll keep you updated as we see more information on how these town halls are going. And if you're on the live, let me know if you're part of the Aries crew by saying hashtag Aries crew in the comments. Let me know if you're a first time watcher by saying first time watcher. I want to give you a shout out for stopping by and spending part of your time here. We're trying to get to 1,800 subscribers. We'd really appreciate if you are liking this content. Go ahead and hit that subscription button and hit that notification bell so you can find out every time I go live, upload videos, post shorts on the community page. We have fun over here, and we'd love to have you a part of the Aries crew, and it costs you nothing to subscribe and join. Look forward to seeing you. And now we have an update, and it's gonna be our last story for tonight on Karmelo Anthony. So Karmelo Anthony is a teenager out of Frisco, Texas, and he was involved in an unfortunate fatal stabbing that caused a young man, Austin Metcalf, to lose his life. So this took place, I want to say, either earlier this month of April or in towards the end of March. Around that time frame, there was a track meet that was out in Frisco, Texas, and it's got multiple schools there, and it was allegedly raining that day, and they had those little pop-up tents up where people could sit under to get out of the rain. And Karmelo Anthony was sitting underneath one for a different school than he went to. And the twins, Hunter and Austin Metcalf, allegedly approached him to say, you can't sit here, you need to leave. This is not the words verbatim, but that was the basic gist. And according to Hunter Metcalf's accounting, and Hunter Metcalf is the twin to Austin Metcalf, who lost his life, unfortunately, so that they just asked him to move, and he said, "Make me move." And then Austin said, "Oh, you're gonna move." And the next thing you know, that's when allegedly Karmelo goes into his backpack, and the next thing Hunter knows, he sees his twin on the ground after, being stabbed. I'm sure he was in pain. Now, I want to say it's very unfortunate that he lost his life. I don't believe the circumstance as to which they were even interacting with each other should have led to somebody losing their life. The unfortunate part is I think it was probably a lot of energy around of like school territorialism. When you're going to compete in sports, you feel that pride for the school you came from, and you don't want anybody in that area in your section. And this is a person you don't know, not from your school, sitting in that tent or sitting under the pop-up, and you just don't want them to be there. And I think it was just teenage boys with testosterone, hormones, all that energy going at the same time that just ended up, unfortunately, being a situation that escalated to a level that caused somebody to lose their life. And my heart goes out to their family. to bury a child instead of being able to see him cross for his graduation to walk across that stage. You have to bury your child. Being a parent, my heart goes out to them. I could not even imagine, and the circumstance for your child to lose their life like that probably doesn't rise to anything that you would think is worth it. I can't think of anything you could tell me that would make me say it would be worth it for my child to lose their life. But with that being said, that's still at the court's discretion, and the jury or the judge, whomever is making the judgment after the trial, goes to determine who is at fault and who is guilty. And unfortunately, this case has become polarizing, I feel like, for all the wrong reasons. And we're talking about a stabbing that took place in Frisco, Texas, with the two teens, Karmelo Anthony and August Metcalf, Matt Bricks. Take a little break to take a drink there. So Karmelo Anthony, he had been arrested after the stabbing took place, and he's been released on bond. His bond was reduced from the initial $1 million it was set at to $250,000, and he was able to make bail, so he has been released. And the family has a Give, Send, Go, which is another crowdfunding source, so similar to GoFundMe, but it's not GoFundMe, but they have a Give, Send, Go set up to help with some expenses that are going to be related to the defense, as well as the family has posted a note on there, and I went and looked at it today to kind of see that it may also be used for other, expenses, but it is also for the purpose of mounting a defense and for the defense team for him when he does go to trial for it. So as of right now, from when I checked it earlier today, the fund had raised $481,850, and their goal was 500. 500,000, 55, um, 5,500 thousand. Look, I can't even talk. Hold on. We're gonna just call it 500,000 is what they were trying to raise there. So they are partway to their goal, a lot closer than not, but they haven't quite reached it yet. And the mom of Karmelo Anthony came out, and she gave a very passionate speech that, just really touched me. And she talked about how the family had to relocate because of all the death threats that they have been receiving, that her 13-year-old child is afraid to sleep in her room because she's worried about something happening to her. And that to me is just awful to hear, that a child at that age isn't concerned about school or those kind of things. They're worried about something happening to them because of something that they didn't even do, just because they're related to a person who was involved in the incident. She also said that her husband had to take a leave of absence at work out of safety concerns. And that's unfortunate too, because in this country, you have to be able to work to make money because everything requires money. And, that's an avenue. Hopefully, he had time saved up that can be used, that, now they can't even go to do normal activity stuff out of fear for their safety. Again, not anything they actually did, but because they're related to a person who was involved in an incident, now their lives are being threatened. So the family had to move. Carmelo Anthony's family had to move from where they were living because their information was out there. People were probably harassing them. And I don't doubt that, because the narrative that's being told about this story, because kind of if you read Hunter's interpretation, it looks like Carmelo was more of the aggressor. But, it's my understanding the twins, Hunter and Austin, approached Carmelo. He did not approach them. So he was sitting there minding his own business, and they came up to him. So I would be on board if he was just cruising around that track meet, had no reason to be there, wasn't, attached to any of the schools that were competing, and he just went up to these boys and started causing problems. Then you'd have my attention, but that doesn't appear from what we know as of right now to be the case. And so I do understand where the family is coming from, of don't just make judgments that you know the whole situation or this whole family and what's going on here because, honestly, most of the people making the comments weren't even the ones there. There's four people that know what happened there. Austin Metcalf, may he rest in peace. He can't share his version. Hunter Metcalf, Karmelo Anthony, and God. Outside of that, if you weren't, right at there at that moment or any of those people, we don't know exactly what happened, but that's a part of what this trial, if it goes to trial, is going to do, is lay out what happened. And then from there, the jury or the judge can make a determination of who is guilty and what, if it was self-defense or not, which Karmelo Anthony is saying it was self-defense. And the family also wanted to point out that Karmelo Anthony comes from a two-parent loving household. So his family is still together. They put God first in everything that they do. And my heart definitely aches for everybody involved. An unfortunate incident that has just changed the lives of so many people that, could have easily, I feel like, been avoided if it was just handled a different way. So we'll see how this goes. I haven't seen a date for the trial yet, but as more information comes out on this, we'll definitely keep you up to date. Um, you know, I think this is one of those situations where if these kids had different tools on how to engage with each other, this could have gone very differently. And I'm hoping anybody seeing this, realizes there's nothing that serious that needs to amount to the level of somebody losing their life over where you're sitting. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. If, walk away from these situations because the stuff you can lose and the people that can be hurt by something that, is just a flash of the moment based on emotions can really impact the rest of your life. And Carmelo's learning that. Sadly, Hunter, is going to be experiencing trauma from seeing your twin, potentially extremely hurt in front of you. As twins, that's, as close as you can get. And I don't know them personally, but I'm sure he and his brother were close. So I can only imagine the trauma he's experiencing for being there and what his parents are experiencing for having to bury a child. So there are, to me, no winners in this situation at all. No winners in this situation at all. I just hate to see people getting death threats and not being able to live their lives because of this situation. And, people are, having racially motivated comments because Karmelo Anthony is black and the family he comes from is black and Austin Metcalf is white. And I have to tell you, I don't think it has anything to do with race. I don't think Karmelo did what he did because of the race or ethnicity that Hunter or Austin were, and vice versa. Again, I don't know that. I'm not in any of their heads or know any of them, but I just don't believe it's a racial issue. They just happen to be those ethnicities. I think that scenario could have easily happened no matter what the case was, no matter what ethnicity anybody was. I think it was just the situation that caused the escalation. I don't think there was any racial motivation. But as always, we'll see what happens in the courts. Just my opinion on it. But if you have not already done so and you're still here on this video, first of all, I appreciate you for doing that. And make sure you hit that like button and share this live out with family and friends. It helps the channel to grow, gets us out here in that YouTube algorithm. We'll be doing some pop-up lives this weekend, and then we'll be back to do our nightly weekday show on Monday. If you have not already done so, we'd love to have you part of the Aries crew. Just hit that subscription button and hit that notification bell. Doesn't cost you anything, and we have fun over here. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you for watching, and take care.